Ferrari's season just collapsed and the FIA is about to hit Lewis Hamilton with a crushing penalty. Post-race data shows a suspension part on Hamilton's car may have broken the rules, and it's now under full investigation. If the FIA confirms the breach, Hamilton will lose his Abu Dhabi result and Ferrari could drop a position in the constructors' standings. And the shocker? Ferrari insiders warned about this exact component before the lights even went out. Subscribe right now because the decision is coming and it could rewrite Hamilton's legacy at Ferrari. The final race of the season was meant to be a formality for Ferrari, a quiet conclusion to a campaign filled with near misses, strategy stumbles, and fading hope. Lewis Hamilton crossed the line in 8th after starting 16th. Charles Leclerc finished 4th, holding back faster cars on tire life and determination alone. But hours after the checkered flag, the story changed. The FIA issued a technical advisory confirming irregular readings from Hamilton's car. And now, what began as an anonymous footnote could become a career-defining scandal. Behind closed doors, FIA technicians flagged rear suspension data from Hamilton's SF25. It showed erratic movement in lateral load zones specifically under high-speed stress in Sector 3. Engineers described it as non-linear compliance. In racing terms, that means the part didn't respond in predictable or legal way under pressure. That's a massive problem in Formula One, where mechanical behavior is strictly defined and every component is pre-approved down to the micron. The FIA's telemetry saw something move that shouldn't have. What set this apart was the consistency. The anomaly wasn't a one-off. It repeated itself on laps 31, 34, and 36 all during fast right-handers. Data from wheel sensors and suspension load points showed measurable deviation. The right rear component believed to be a suspension arm or mounting point flexed more than it legally should. This wasn't a catastrophic failure or visible collapse. It was subtle, structural, and potentially illegal. In Formula One, that distinction is everything. Because subtle is hard to catch and even harder to defend. Even more troubling for Ferrari, the issue didn't appear on Leclerc's car. That ruled out a systemic flaw. It pointed to something specific to Hamilton's setup, assembly, or component usage. According to internal sources, both cars ran nearly identical suspension geometry. But Hamilton's driving style, known for heavy rotation entry and soft rear exit, may have put more stress on that side of the car. Still, the responsibility lies with Ferrari's engineering crew. It's their job to ensure all parts conform. And on this car, they may have missed something they couldn't afford to miss. Adding fuel to the fire, some team engineers reportedly raised concerns before the race. According to leaked internal comms, Hamilton's garage flagged strange compliance behavior during FP3. The data didn't match simulations, and rear-end grip was described as unstable under load. The issue was dismissed as a thermal fluctuation or surface inconsistency. Now that decision looks catastrophic. What could have been an early warning sign became a regulatory breach under live race conditions. And if the FIA proves the part flexed illegally, that's automatic disqualification. The rules are brutal but clear. Article 11 of the technical regulations states that no suspension component may deform dynamically beyond its declared range unless explicitly approved. This isn't about performance gain. It's about structural legality. If the part moved too much, it doesn't matter if Hamilton gained 1 second or lost 10. The car was not in legal configuration. And under current FIA enforcement policy, that means exclusion from the final result, no appeals, no exceptions. What makes this twist so brutal is the emotional weight. Hamilton came to Ferrari to chase his 8th world title. This year, that dream never got off the ground. The car was unpredictable. The team was reactive. But through it all, Hamilton stayed composed, pushing the project forward with quiet intensity. Now, in the final race of the year, with no podiums and no wins, his only legacy might be a regulatory failure. Not for something he did, but for something the car did, without him even knowing. And in Formula One, ignorance is not a defense. The FIA's initial investigation began with telemetry analysis from Hamilton's SF25. Engineers observed abnormal readings in the right rear suspension during high-speed corners in Sector 3. Lateral load sensors and wheel deflection data indicated that the component consistently exceeded its expected compliance range. While the car maintained drivability, the deviations were measurable and reproducible across multiple laps. These anomalies immediately triggered further scrutiny, because in Formula One, even subtle mechanical irregularities can be classified as non-compliant if they deviate from homologated specifications. Next, the FIA conducted post-race physical tests on the rear suspension component. Using hydraulic actuators and calibrated force rigs, they simulated the loads experienced on track. The tests revealed that the part flexed by 3.1 millimeters beyond its allowed tolerance under peak lateral stress. While minimal by human standards, this difference is massive in F1 terms. The regulations clearly stipulate that no suspension component may deform beyond declared limits under operational load. The finding was therefore classified as a technical breach, independent of any performance advantage. Comparison with Leclerc's car highlighted the specificity of the anomaly. Both SF25s were built to nearly identical specifications, but telemetry from Leclerc's car showed no such deviation. The right rear suspension on his chassis maintained compliance within the legal margin across the same high-speed corners. This pointed to an isolated issue on Hamilton's vehicle rather than a systemic design flaw. Whether due to assembly variation, material inconsistencies, or a slight setup change, the component on Hamilton's car was outside legal parameters. Video evidence reinforced the telemetry and test data. High-speed corner cameras captured subtle asymmetry in Hamilton's rear-end movement through Sector 3. Onboard footage confirmed the car's rear right corner squatted slightly more under load than expected. When analyzed frame by frame and overlaid with telemetry, the correlation between sensor data and physical behavior was clear. This convergence of mechanical testing, telemetry, and visual evidence provided the FIA with irrefutable proof that the component deviated from its declared compliance envelope. The FIA also reviewed repeated laps to ensure consistency. Laps 31, 34, and 36 were specifically analyzed. On each lap, the right rear suspension exhibited identical behavior, flexing beyond allowed limits under similar loads. This eliminated the possibility of a one-time failure or accidental impact. The reproducibility confirmed that the deviation was inherent to the component's behavior during the race. In regulatory terms, consistent deviation under normal operating conditions is sufficient to trigger penalties. Importantly, the FIA clarified that performance benefit is not required to issue a penalty. Even though Hamilton finished 8th and was not challenging for the podium, the violation itself is sufficient for disqualification. Formula One rules prioritize mechanical conformity over outcome. Any component operating outside its approved specification compromises the legality of the result. That is why the FIA's finding carries such immediate and serious implications, regardless of whether the driver gained a competitive advantage. Finally, the data paints a clear path forward for the sanction. With telemetry, mechanical tests, and video all aligning, the FIA has established the breach. Ferrari's only defense would need to prove that the component remained within legal limits or that external factors caused temporary deformation. Given the consistency and reproducibility of the anomaly, this is unlikely. As a result, Hamilton's Abu Dhabi result is at serious risk, and the penalty is imminent, a stark reminder of how precise, zero-tolerance enforcement governs modern Formula One. In Formula One, every suspension component is engineered to exacting tolerances. The rear suspension on Hamilton's SF25 is not just structural, it directly affects the car's aerodynamic balance. Any unexpected flex changes the pitch of the car and alters the airflow beneath the floor, impacting downforce and stability through corners. Even a few millimeters of unapproved deformation can subtly improve rotation or rear grip without changing wings or tires. That's why the FIA monitors dynamic compliance so closely. Legality is measured in microns, not performance outcome. The part on Hamilton's car was found to flex under lateral load beyond its homologated specification. In modern F1, Article 11 explicitly forbids such behavior. The rule applies regardless of intent or observable benefit. A component operating outside its declared parameters is automatically non-compliant. In this case, the FIA observed repeated deviations over multiple high-speed laps, confirming that the flex was consistent and reproducible, a textbook breach under the regulations. Hamilton's driving style may have amplified the issue. Known for precise trail braking and mid-corner rotation, he relies on a responsive rear end to execute his driving inputs. The SF25's rear suspension was tuned to his preferences, with damping and ride rates tailored to his technique. But when a component is already flexing beyond its limits, It interacts unpredictably with the driver's inputs, producing behavior that is both illegal and difficult to manage. This explains why onboard footage showed erratic rear-end motion despite Hamilton's skill. Even seemingly minor flex has big consequences in modern racing. Suspension compliance affects tire contact, mechanical grip, and aerodynamic consistency. The repeated deviations in Hamilton's car could theoretically reduce rear tire load oscillations, improve traction through corners, or stabilize the car in ways not accounted for by the homologated spec. While the FIA doesn't need to prove any performance gain, understanding the mechanical implications illustrates why such precision is enforced. Even tiny movements can influence lap times and driver control. Ferrari's internal process also comes under scrutiny. Components are checked for tolerances and tracked during assembly. Yet Hamilton's car displayed isolated flex, suggesting that either the assembly process, batch variance, or part fatigue led to deviation. In F1, teams must guarantee that every car behaves within specification before it hits the track. Failure to do so, even unintentionally, falls squarely on the team, not the driver. Hamilton, despite his experience, cannot be expected to compensate for structural non-compliance. This incident underscores the zero-tolerance nature of modern Formula One. In an era of highly regulated aero floors, ride heights, and suspension geometries, even a fraction of a millimeter outside specification triggers investigation and penalties. The SF25's right rear suspension flex might be measured in millimeters, but its regulatory significance is massive. The FIA's approach leaves no room for interpretation. Components either comply, or the car is illegal. Finally, the implications for the future are profound. Teams preparing for 2026 must ensure that every suspension, every composite arm, and every assembly process remains within spec. Hamilton's penalty, if confirmed, will be a cautionary tale, signaling that even experienced teams with world-class drivers are not exempt from scrutiny. The zero-tolerance environment ensures fairness, but also raises the stakes. Innovation, assembly, and engineering precision are now as important as strategy or speed. Hamilton's Abu Dhabi race may go down as a defining example of this new era.